Look, detectives combing through the hood looking for a corpse. Draco hitting. I don't think your body can endure the force. I whipped the fish up with a fucking hanger or a fork. Told that bitch, go ahead, sniff what you want. There's plenty more to snort. I had an outstanding warrant for a short. Turned myself in, rocking Louis and all my jewelry. I wore the court.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hard to Kill, episode 91. Benjamin Fortier, back in Mendon, back in the lab. Ben, how we doing, buddy?
Good, man. 2024 is here. We have gotten through the Christmas season.
Bulldozed through.
Yeah.
Still alive, still hanging in. What do you think about this madness going on? The new election's coming up. We got 3 different fronts going on overseas. Marine Corps still standing tall, still hooking and a jabbing. What do you think about everything, man?
Yeah, dude, it's a loaded question right there.
I think throw it at you.
Just dump it all on me.
You know?
Fucking 5 ton. Yeah, man. You know what, man? I'm just trying to keep things within my own purview at this point, and that's all we could do at this point is control the fucking 3 feet.
Yeah, the things that you can control, right?
Exactly, man. And I try to, as much as I'm interested in, what's going on, like with like the war fighting aspect and stuff like that, it's like I'm in such like a different place.
I hear that.
Than that. And I was an infantry marine, 05, 06, I was doing some hooking and jabbing myself. But at this point in the game, it's like, man, I got a different career, I got a different set of hobbies and shit like that. And while I do kind of try to pay attention. Actually, here's a cool thing that's happening is the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps is coming down to BCC in Fall River.
Oh, wow.
And just fucking randomly, I'm part of the Marine Corps League, and they sent out a message, and they were like, hey, the Sergeant Major wants to talk to veterans.
That's awesome.
Like specifically Marine Corps veterans, and so there's going to be a whole slew of us. I'll probably be the youngest one there, as I usually am. And he just wants to kind of give a briefing on what's going on in the Marine Corps and stuff
What's the group that's facilitating that?
That's a good question. I know that it's at the BCC Bristol Community College campus, but for some reason that he chose that spot, and I'm not sure who's coordinating it, but they thought that would be a good spot to kind of gather a bunch of Marines.
Maybe they'll try to join you, man.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
It's kind of come as you are. There's no uniform or anything like that required. It's just kind of a pretty casual briefing with the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, which is fantastic. I don't think I've ever seen somebody in that high a position come down and be like, hey, I'm going to come to your local community college and shoot the shit with the guys.
Yeah, good for him, man. I mean,
for sure. I've heard great things.
Yeah, I have too. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say. And that's him, staying with the times. You got to get out there. You got to let the people know who you are and what you're about. So, good for him. Ross R. Major. I'm going to get back to something you just said right there. How I brought up what's going on right now and how you're an infantry marine, and usually infantry guys like to stay on target with stuff like that and get involved and everything. But you're right. I mean, I talked to a slew of different people, and a lot of them, they tend to want to just, put that behind them and kind of grow past that. I talked to someone recently, you might know, Neville Johnson. Mm-hmm. And he was saying that he kept all of his stuff in a footlocker, locked away for years. And he just didn't touch it. And I think maybe that's a way to grow past some of the, the PTSD and the aches and anxieties that we deal with, is just locking it up and pushing past and I mean, it's so hard because, some of these times are the best times we've ever had, and you don't want to forget them, but in a certain way, you got to move past them to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, I feel like just how you said, I mean, I feel like too many people get wrapped up in the things that they can't control, and they end up, taking it out on individuals they care about, arguing with them, and it creates a bunch of nonsense that shouldn't even be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. I completely agree with you there.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's back it up. Why don't you tell the listeners how you got into the Marines, and I don't know if you had any mentors or how you found your way down at Parris Island all of a sudden.
Yeah. It was kind of a culmination of my real lifelong interests, in the military, in public service. I didn't really have any per se close family or anything like that were Marines. I had a grandfather who was a Marine who served in World War II, but we weren't close. I never heard anything from him personally. So my, views of the Marine Corps were very grandiose, as they often are. You don't know what it is until you're in it.
Yes.
And so I wanted to do something that was going to be part-time. So originally I'd thought, there's a slew of Army and Air National Guard bases around here. So I was like, I could do Army National Guard or something like that. Because to me, the part-time thing was a way to just kind of test the waters. Of
course.
A way to kind of see if I really fit in with the culture. Because I grew up very artistic. I didn't really do a whole lot of like athletic shit.
Do you think that's a Massachusetts thing? Because I found that similar too. I didn't find a lot of people like get in the military, they weren't all pro about that.
Yeah, I think, obviously around here it's a bit more liberal generally, but as you I think as you zoom into people's cultures and things like that in their homesteads, there's probably a bit more of like moderation in there than we really think. I grew up in a very rural area. There's lots of conservative values and things like that. And some of those values I still hold on to. Some of them I ditched along the way, and that's fine. But, I think it really was, and at the time, 9/11 had just happened. That's right. I was like 17. Sorry, I was 14-ish, yeah.
So, when were you born? What year?
When 9/11 happened, I was a freshman in high school.
Okay, so you're a little older than me, because I was in 7th grade, I believe. But you're right. I mean, 9/11 ties into a lot of us GWOT guys, man. I mean,
for sure.
Whenever we get asked, why'd you join the military? I hate to be corny, but a lot of us, say 9/11 because we were at that age where it really impacted us. Mm-hmm. I mean, we didn't really know what to expect. Nothing like that had ever happened. I mean, aside from Pearl Harbor, you know what I mean, when we weren't around, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it was just a very odd feeling when that happened, man. I didn't really know how to take it. Where I was young at the time, and all the adults at the time, they didn't really know how to take it either. We kind of were just all watching in awe. I don't know if you remember exactly where you were when it happened, but yeah. I
think that was like a collective trauma thing.
Definitely,
like for sure. Like we were watching, regardless of whether you were 7 or 70 years old, we were watching like people jump out of buildings live on TV, and regardless of how it happened or whatever, we could jump down that rabbit hole. I don't think it's worth it on this episode here, but like that's collective trauma, bro.
For sure.
And like
that is, and I don't know what is.
Seriously, dude. And so like as like a country, man, like we were fucking like let's go, definitely. Dude. Like it was a super any sort of social progressiveness towards liberalism and things like that, I think just went to the side.
See you later.
It was like
it's crazy actually how united we became through that, through like a collective trauma. You know what I mean? Because look at us now. Look how separated and just everyone's at each other's necks because of who's the next president. You know what I'm saying?
Or whatever, right?
But something like that really brought us all together to a certain degree.
Absolutely, it did, and it sucks to think that like. Something that devastating is what it's going to take.
I agree.
But I mean, even small pockets of things, like you see natural disasters, you got Katrina and things like that, where people kind of come together as a community. But even that, like, we've never seen anything like that. It was so unprecedented when 9/11 happened. Definitely. So I wanted to double down and be like, yep, we're going to war. I want to be a part of this. This is something I want to be a part of. So in the Marine Corps, I realized they had an infantry unit that was based out of Massachusetts. I was like, that's super interesting to me.
Perfect.
I want to do that.
Shout out that unit.
That's the 1st Battalion, 25th Marines. They are still out of Fort Devens. They're New England based. There's a bunch of different, line companies out of different states and shit like that. But the headquarters and weapons, which I was part of weapons, is out of Fort Devens. And that has a really cool history. Like, there was, I think, one of the Special Forces groups operated out of Devens and shit. It's a cool place. Huh. It's
do a dive on
mainly
that.
Army and shit. But, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it was cool to join that unit. No one really had any combat experience when we were deployed, So we had a lot of add-ons. From other units, guys that wanted to join. My vehicle commander was a 3.5 veteran who did Phantom Fury.
Oh, wow.
So he was...
Assault dog.
He's a fucking... Dude, he was just involved in a police shooting. Like, he was the guy who... I don't know if you heard about it, but he went down. He had just gotten shot and he went down, pop, 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 like he killed the guy who tried to kill him and his partner.
Wow.
So, and dude, and I left a comment on the page where it's like some,
This was recently?
like last year and a half or so ago. But it, you know, as with all things, it got swept up in the news
Shocker.
and nobody really,
Shocker.
you know, paid attention to it. You know, it's and it's he's a wild fucking cat, man.
Crazy
So,
that it happened to him.
yeah, I know, dude. And so he is, you know, he's still trucking along, man. Fucking shout out to you, Tim. I try to shout out Tim whenever I can. He's just a
Hold your head,
awesome
brother.
guy. He's an awesome fucking guy, and he has been through it all, basically. And so from Phantom Fury to the fucking mean streets of Decatur, Illinois, the
wild.
dude has been in their shit.
Still holding it down.
Yeah, for real, man. So he has, you know, pursued that path of service, of protection, you know, and I fucking salute the fuck out of that because, you know, some people, they hold that. They become firefighters, become
Facts.
police officers, they become EMTs, or they get into the research side of things or the intel side of things. And it's like, you can keep on trucking, guys. It's like fucking, you don't have to necessarily you can put down the body armor and still help out in ways that you feel.
You know, it's funny because
Right.
Justin Thomas Egan kind of talked on that when he was on the show, how like SEPs and TAPs, they kind of like influence you to stop to a certain degree because you're getting your DD-214 and it's like, you're done. You know what I'm saying? So you don't realize it, but in your head, it kind of like makes you be like, oh, okay, I can take this pack off now, and I can relax, and I can go home and just exhale. When really, you can keep trucking, man. And there's nothing saying that you can't keep doing something similar to what you did in the Corps and plug it into civilian, you know, society.
For sure.
But yeah, I hear you there. So okay, so boot camp, you kind of breezed by that. Anything significant there?
Nah,
Boot camp's got a boot
really.
camp?
Boot camp was boot camp. It was my real first experience into like very structured life, I'm sure. You know, I tried to muster up some athletics so I wasn't fucking
we all
falling
did.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was very middle of the pack as far as that shit, you know, when SOI came around. I was in SOI basically September to October of 2005. That was pretty cool. Fucking 0341 was my designation, so got to learn how to do the basic infantry shit, and then did the mortar thing, which is fun.
Is that something that interested you at the time, or did it just
No,
kind
I
of just
was
get cattle prodded there?
Dude, it was so funny. I remember getting a GI Joe, a mortar GI Joe for Christmas. Like I was like 14 or something like that, and I was like, "This is the dorkiest fucking dude." I was like, "Who would want to do this? Like dropping little artillery." And when I was originally contracted, it was as a 0351, which is assaultman, which is now
Which is R.I.P.
R.I.P. to that MOS. So
A lot
I
of
was
people are
pretty
salty at that, dude.
Yeah, man, I was pretty psyched, and then somewhere along the line, and what was cool is I could go. Usually, a lot of infantry guys are open contract.
Yeah.
Mine was like whatever I wanted, basically.
Oh, really?
So, but somewhere along the line, they switched me to 0341 because it was based on the needs of the unit.
Gotcha.
So, you know, it was whatever. But when I did it, I found it to be really cool. I thought it was a super interesting job, a little more heady because, you know, you're doing sights and alignments, and especially when you get up to the FDC, the fire direction control, then it's way more heady because you're doing like math and fucking trig.
Did you notice that anything like involving that you kind of got out and used?
Trigonometry might ring my bell, but
Well, not more so the math. I don't know. Anything involving anything to do with mortars. Anything, I don't know. I guess the book, to a certain degree, you got to talk. I mean, it didn't really talk anything mortar specifically in there, but I don't know. I guess yeah, it kind of did die off a little bit when you got out. But
yeah, we didn't even when we deployed, it was in the capacity of a CAT unit, basically,
Gotcha.
more or less. We were a combined anti-arms team. I was a driver. I drove for 7 months straight, never touched a
funny
single
how that
mortar.
happens.
Exactly, man. So like we were more than halfway through our training at Mojave Viper when we were basically retasked to be mobile assault platoons is what they called us.
did they spread you guys out?
Yep. So it was like 6 0341s, 7 0331s, 2 0351s, because they wanted kind of a mix of guys.
Yeah,
A lot of the turret gunners, machine gunners.
Yep.
because you got to be proficient with those systems.
Yep.
And I mean, not to say that an 0311 couldn't get good on a 240 or a saw or whatever, but these guys were trained machine gunners,
Absolutely.
and they
You want to utilize them where you can. Right?
exactly. So I was my billet as a 0341 in an 81's platoon was driver anyway. So it was really not any jump for me. I wasn't going, like as like a forward observer into the turret or something like that. It was an easy transition for me.
So how far out of SOI, when you went back to your unit, did you end up pumping out?
Like when I first checked into 125 coming out of SOI, they said, your first drill is a deployment. It was, dude, it was crawl, walk, run, sprint.
How did that make you feel?
I was pretty nervous, but at the time, man, it was...
How old were you?
19.
Yep.
19 years old.
Excited, but at the same time, you get a little nervous because it's like, oh shit, this is happening now.
It's real.
Yeah.
Yep. And I knew very well what we were walking into. I was very familiar with Fallujah. I was following Phantom Fury as a teenager. I could on the news. I couldn't really get like in-depth shit. Dude, like we would today, like you'd probably have fucking frontline helmet footage of the Hell House and wild shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's just it was a different time, man. Like cell phones were just starting to
time
get,
now, dude.
It's
You remember
wild.
how frowned upon that was looked if you had any kind of cell phone at all? You know what I mean? That's like upset times 1,000, dude.
I remember there was I remember writing a blog post about it. I was all pissed off. A Marine killed a fighter, and it was like this big, kind of scandal. It was during Phantom Fury, and it was like, oh, he shouldn't have done that. They had surrendered, but they were worried about booby traps and shit like that. So this Marine was like, pop, 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 got him, doing what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why they pulled back on the Al Fajr. There were two massive operations in Phantom Fury because we had bottlenecked all the insurgency into those cities, Fallujah and Ramadi.
Yep.
And, so all that shit was happening, and it was kind of what? I was paying attention because I knew where we were going. I was like, dude, this is fucking insane. So when we checked in, we are working up, we are going to Fallujah. And it was like, whoa. Okay. That was the heaviest thing I'd ever felt in my life.
So how much training in Mojave Viper did translated over to directly what you were doing, boots on the ground?
A little bit, but most of it was very left seat, right seat. When we got in theater is we learned how to operate. And we had to be very flexible in theater too, because we were there for 7 months, and the AO that we received and the AO that we gave away were completely different.
Were you mobile the whole time, going to different place?
No, we operated within the city limits, and very occasionally, if we did a battalion op and we're supporting the regiment or something, we might go outside the city a little bit. But
where'd you sleep?
Usually at Camp Barrio, which was right outside the city.
Gotcha. Okay.
Excuse me.
And when you were mounted, obviously, was it all soft top Humvees or?
No, they were hard tops. They were mildly up armored at that point. Okay. The doors were the bulletproof glass, heavier doors. Nice. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. It didn't take long though for the insurgents to realize that there was zero armor underneath, and unlike the MRAPs, which have a height advantage, and they have the nice little coned underbelly. Yep. That's when we started realizing, holy fuck, these guys know how to hit us, and hit us hard.
So was that right when the IED threat really started coming around?
Huge IED threats.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What were you mostly seeing? For the type of IED I'm referring to.
Yeah, right. Well, it first started, the first 3 quarters of the deployment were very much side shots. Okay. And they did get clever. They elevated some under bridges. If you went under an overpass or something, you might get hit.
Would you mostly say it would be RC controlled? So there would be maybe for an RC controlled, there would be indicators in our convoy. And when we went past an indicator, there would be a guy at a mud hut,
right,
hundreds of meters away.
Yep.
The copper line would run and it would blow off.
It was a mix of hardwired and wireless.
Gotcha.
We did implement at the time the Chameleon devices, which I'm pretty sure have fried people's brains.
facts.
And that's fucking just crazy. You know, we are just now realizing how bad the burn pits were and shit like that. I think the next thing is going to be the electronic warfare.
That's something to think about, man.
And fucking, dude, I just had a very good friend of mine tell me that he has like a giant tumor in his brain. And he had like, you know, I was like, holy fuck, dude, they fried you, man. It's wild.
You know, it's really scary for us, man, because a lot of the things over there didn't have checks and balances that we were using. And just as you said, stuff like that, the chameleon, that's just a raw signal being pumped out that we're right next to, okay? I don't think Ear Pro and fucking
None of that
safety
shit,
glasses
dude.
are protecting you against that.
None of
man.
that shit.
It's scary because, I mean, we're the guys over there, you know, saving the world or protecting the world, and we're getting affected by these things. And it's first it's the burn pits, now it's just scary. Every time I go to the VA, I'm just like, well, what's next?
Yeah. Thankfully, we have really great organizations like Hunter 7 to help out, but it sucks that it has to come down to a nonprofit third-party agency
To do this stuff that are not even federally funded or have the ways or means to be effective. They're really our only tool in this is barking about it.
Yeah.
You know, spread the word on social media, platforms like this talking about it.
Yep.
And that's all we can do. And hopefully that's what's going to come out of stuff like this, man. Because really, we're kind of like the first wave of military podcasts that are coming out, man. And hopefully, the most that we can hope for is it helps some of the later guys coming out of you know, the Middle East and maybe some of the new generation going forward. But okay, so let's focus right when you get boots on ground over there, man. What's the feeling?
I didn't really get the full sense of it until we left the wire for the first
course.
time. And that was, I remember being on the base, you know, we got to Bahria, spent a few days in Bahria, and I was like, this isn't so bad. You know, it's kind of like camping, you know, we're out at camp and shit, you know, fucking I'm hanging out with the boys, you know, and there's no real threat here. But when we left the wire and we got into the city for the first time, I had never been exposed to like third world conditions before. I grew up in a pretty wealthy area, pretty nice.
What was it that caught your eye, like stuck out to you?
Oh God, just the way their infrastructure was, and like literally a fucking war zone, and like the bombed out homes,
Shot holes everywhere.
dude, like you could tell tank rounds had gone through some of these buildings.
How they're just like casually making the stuff work still.
Yeah, they're like people just going to work, and there's like, you know, and obviously like giant puddles of shit in the middle of the.
So over there, they don't have plumbing, and I'm pretty sure they subscribe to they shit in a bucket or piss in a bucket.
The medieval way, medieval way.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it is what it is, and so the first time I ever drove through, you know, a puddle, I was like, oh yeah, it rained recently, and you know, here it's like, no, it had rained a little bit recently, so it probably flooded the normal. I mean, these things would take up the entire street sometimes, dude, and you know, there's stories of somebody driving through them too fast, and the turret gunner gets a mouthful of shit and whatnot.
Dysentery
So that's really like, I was like, dude, but these people are just living their trying to live their best life. You know, it's 120 degrees. It's in the summer. There's shit flowing through the middle of the street. And there's residential areas, there's commercial areas, there's an industrial area. It feels like a city, you know, that you might drive around and fucking...
What'd you think about the civilian populace? What vibe were they giving you?
Hesitant. They were definitely like unsure, because I mean, the way that it was is like we were trying to help them out. Anytime I interacted with an Iraqi civilian person, it was trying to be helpful, but obviously there's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier. My interpreter was essential.
Absolutely. I talk about that all the time, how they don't get talked about enough.
Absolutely, dude. We consider that guy a Marine. We gave him an Eagle Globe and Anchor, and we were like...
Did you have a good interpreter?
Oh, he was amazing.
Did you see the difference between like a poor interpreter and a very good interpreter?
I heard about them only because our interpreter had stuck with our platoon the whole time, and I worked with him like directly. He was in my truck.
Gotcha.
So I never had any other experience. I only heard about poor experiences with Terps, you know, but this guy had worked with Army SF before. He had been through it since the beginning of the war, basically.
Because you got to think, we say there's a drop off with the language. There's certain things that don't get translated all the way through English that we need to know. We need to know their vibe, whether it's upset, they're unsure, they're anxious, maybe they could be lying, they could be holding something back, and a good interpreter will tell you that. They'll let you know on something like that. So things like that are big. And that's why it's so sad, the way we pulled out of there, man. It's just, we left a lot of people high and dry. And it wasn't just us doing the thing over there. There was a lot of guys that decided to help us. And over there, if you're an Iraqi or an Afghani local and you just decide to throw up the old American flag, it's noticed. They see that.
And, the community is very small.
Yes, big time. So something to think about, guys. But okay, so you talk to me about that. That first month is always a little bit rusty when you get there, because you're doing a rip with someone else usually. You're just getting to be familiar with your surroundings. You're starting to see everything for the first time. You're realizing the things to look out for. But once you start getting on a schedule, what's that like?
I mean, it was pretty sporadic. So our schedule would change every few months. We mainly do just presence patrols, IED sweeps. We were the primary
unit in the area.
Yeah, and we were basically the primary QRF. If somebody was rolling through the city and they got blown up, a MAP platoon was there to help them out, because a lot of the line units were doing ops. They were doing presence patrols and foot patrols and stuff too. The weapons were mainly utilized as a QRF and a presence, and we would do IED sweeps at 4 a.m. If we came across something, we'd call in the engineers or whatever.
Wait 3 hours.
It was the first few months. We took a little bit of contact, and it wasn't until the autumn time frame where they changed their TTPs. A lot of prisoners were released from Abu Ghraib, and they came out into Fallujah and Ramadi. And
you noticed?
Oh, we noticed. We noticed for sure, because what were once, side shot IEDs became an underbelly IED followed by an RPG team trying to lock in on you.
Complex ambush.
Yep. So it became a lot more hostile very quickly.
I think the first time I was involved with something like that, it really scared me because I felt like I was being hunted.
Yeah.
Like actually hunted. And you don't think, you're not aware of it at the time, but when you're going through it, it's like, oh shit, like
that guy's been watching me. Yep.
After that, it really, you understand why you need to be on the balls of your feet at all times. Because think about it, dude, you get complacent to a certain degree over there. All you have is time. You know what I'm saying? You're doing the same thing every day, and it doesn't pop off every time.
Yeah.
So you realize keeping your head on a swivel, having situational awareness is imperative at all times over there.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that time, once you start really taking contact, your group really tends to get much stronger. You start realizing all the pros and cons of everybody. So what truck were you in the convoy usually?
Typically second from the start.
Okay.
So I was very good at following people around.
So you had a Saab top?
Typically a 50.
Oh, you had a 50. Okay.
Yeah. We had the nice privilege of rolling around with the heavier guns. I think at one point, like we might have even had a Mark 19 or 2, but they pulled. It was all just ball ammo and shit like that. So
Mark 19s are nice at first, but once you realize they jam like a motherfucker, and I mean, you really have to have a great gunner on them that understands the system and knows how to manipulate it.
It's its own beast.
Absolutely.
Too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's one of the significant things that you remember over there? Like, because for me, I have we got multiple engagements, but I have 2 or 3 firefights that ring out for me. Is there 1 or 2 for you that you can think about that really kind of set the tone for you and made you feel away to a certain degree?
Yeah, well, I mean, there were all kinds of things that happened, but the thing that brings out to me the most, it's been written about several times in Phantoms. It's wrote about it in a song and the music group that I'm in. It was the day of September 4th where we lost 3 Marines in one attack, and it didn't start off as a typical. Didn't start off as a typical day.
It was creepy.
Mainly because was that your curtain?
Yeah.
Was it?
They
The
talking to
ghosts
us?
are talking.
Yeah.
We're listening. Yeah, it started off as an atypical day because we were doing a satellite patrol around an area, basically to disrupt any potential mortar attacks.
Okay.
There was a funeral happening. Let's say this is the middle of the city here. There was this is where the Charlie Company lived. They did a lot of operations out of there. It was an old government center directly in the middle of the city.
Gotcha.
So we were, driving around here, making sure that nobody had time to set up any mortars to launch into the base because
like a
patrol.
gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So we were doing that. We were with another platoon. They were kind of doing the same thing in the same area. We heard, fucking ground shakes and shit. And we come up on the scene. One of the Vics in the other platoon had hit like a mine.
Gotcha.
Basically,
Big boom.
fucking. Just,
Some of those big ones, like the big mines over there, you can just feel in your chest
Yep.
when it goes off. Just a lot of energy, a lot of power behind
Yep.
them.
Yep. No, so we fucking came up on the scene, held the cordon, and I was basically sitting there watching, these guys burn.
So your vehicle cordon. Mm-hmm. Okay. Fuck.
It was rough, man. So that same day, we carried on with the mission. The other platoon went back and had to lick their wounds, had to fucking drop off a Humvee, it was bad. We're sitting on a cordon, fucking an RPG goes off, hits my commander's truck, blows part of his hood off.
Wow.
We go back to the fob, lick our wounds, and as we're driving out, we are blacked out. It's like 7, 8 o'clock at night at this point. Blacked out, MVG's down, going across the main highway in Fallujah, and another one of those.
Damn.
And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And fucking white flash in the Humvee,
course, yeah.
or the MVGs. I turn the truck around, and all I see is like another burning Humvee.
Wow.
And they had hit one of our trucks in my platoon. I think it was like the second to last truck. And, I basically drive into a small ambush. There's fucking contact coming back, 50 yards away. There's a house.
Let me slow you down. In a situation like that, because I've been in something very similar to that, chaos.
Oh, it's
Chaos.
Yeah, utterly.
You see how absolutely important calm is? And it's something like that, usually it's out. Usually it goes out, because I know mine did. But it's just chaotic, and things are just happening like this.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's most important is communication between the gunners. Hearing them chirp back and forth, at least that we're being progressive and back a little bit, so
Yep.
you know who's shooting what, because usually you can tell the caliber difference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what's going through your head, man? I mean, you're a driver. You're obviously thinking, get out of the kill zone or get your guys, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, firstly, when I heard that explosion and I saw it happen, I was the first truck in that instance because my captain, we had lost his truck.
Yeah, gotcha.
So the captain jumped in my truck. We were a vehicle down, and we just were like, all right, we're just gonna carry on. And I wanted to just floor it, dude, and just,
course.
Woo, see you later. I will see you guys around. But I fucking. You're a Marine, man. You what you got to do. Marines don't run from the fight.
Facts.
So it took everything in me to suppress that original fear and that original feeling that anybody would have.
That right there, that what you're talking about, is almost to me the feeling of death. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it out of this.
Dude, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And I don't know if anybody hadn't thought that.
And when you decided to hit the gas, or for me, I was a gunner, I decided to rack it back and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a cognizant decision that you make. That's just like, all right, here it is. This is that moment.
This could
You know
be,
what I mean?
right, yeah. Absolutely, man. So, drove into the kill zone, there's people shooting at each other, and fucking, we don't see the contact, it's real dark, but there's muzzle flashes and shit like that. And our priority at that point was get the injured out.
Yes,
We didn't know what was going on, but, and obviously to your point as well, we had comms. And I remember our truck was the initial truck. We had the captain in there, my section leader, the VC, the 3-5 vet was in there. And it was chaos in the truck because we were trying to get comms. We had to radio into the battalion. We didn't know what the fuck was going on. We didn't know what to say. And it was madness.
Did you have to get a 9-line out, or no?
We drove our own fucking guy right to Fallujah Surgical,
Savage.
man. He drove his own medevac, dude. What? Blown the fuck, dude. He got blown out of the turret.
Come on, talk about that.
Dude, John Goldman, shout out to you, buddy.
Savage.
President of the fucking current of the Marine Association, John Goldman, got blown out of the turret, rolled over the hood like on fire, and fucking he got in the high back, and he was like, "All right." And there were 2 Marines that lost their legs. They got fucking ripped up, dude.
Double amps. Shit.
Yeah, well, not double. One guy lost one leg, the other guy lost his opposite leg, so single amps.
Still all in one truck.
All in one truck.
Okay.
And so John's in the in driver's seat, like bleeding, you know, like fucking his knees all fucked up. He just was on fire. And like one of the corporals is like, "Hey, we gotta go. And he's like, "I know, man, I'm waiting for you guys to look." And he drove his own fucking medevac.
Cheers to you,
Cheers,
brother.
John.
That's a savage story right there. You and your own medevac. Okay.
Yeah, he's
You
a
don't hear that
badass.
often.
No, man. So as we're rolling out, you know, tanks and Hueys and shit are rolling, because nobody knows what the fuck is going on, dude. Like,
Overkill time.
yeah, exactly, dude. Dude, almost a fucking aerial bombardment of the that we were taking contact from. There was almost a CAS. And that was not a thing that happened like
that's early.
at that time.
Yeah,
This was
exactly.
2006. We were trying so hard to win hearts and minds. If we had bombed somebody's house, I don't think it would have went over too well. So we were like licking our wounds,
and minds.
fucking.
Talk about when like you come back from something like that, because I always talk about like when you get into like an engagement like that, maybe you lose a couple guys, maybe some guy loses a leg, for instance. But when the guys that like bagged it out and it all get back, and there's a system to what we do, and something like that, all the guys get back. We got to clean the trucks out, get all the weapons out. We got to clean them still. We got to lick our wounds to a certain degree. Yep. We got to write reports. It just doesn't end right there. You just don't go to bed and about stories to tell home. You still got shit to do.
Yeah.
But for me, we'd be, all my guys would be silent at first, clean weapons, and then all of a sudden someone would be like, "Did you see that?" Yeah, and it would just like open up. But it's a weird energy that you have, because you all just went through it and you got through it,
Right.
and it's just adrenaline still. You know what I mean? It's wild. Well, thank God you got out of that, man.
Yeah, man. I'm grateful that all the guys in my platoon came back. Like, might have came back with fewer parts, but they're here.
Still going.
Man,
Still
they're
going.
killing it. They're doing great stuff. My buddy Pat is the legislative director at the VFW.
Good for
He's
him.
doing amazing, dude. Shane is a detective over at Boston PD. He's fucking doing awesome. And John is a lawyer, and he's doing great. Unfortunately, with the other platoon, they lost basically an entire truck except for Cody Hill, who is severely burned, but he's still killing it too. He's like a logistics company down where he's from.
I love to hear guys that get into some shit like that and have every reason to give up and quit, and they still find a positive and they still fucking make something out of themselves, man. And there's enough to be said with that, right?
Yeah, they're my heroes, dude.
It's not easy to
They're
do.
my heroes.
That's not something come to notice. I tend to be a negative person, and it's guys like that move me, because I see that and it's just like, what am I over here bitching about?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
That's off to you guys. Well, that's a savage story, man. And so tell me this. Neville told me that he would take, he had like a diary or like a notebook over there or something like that. Is that similar to what you did?
Yeah.
Really?
I had a journal I kept pretty common entries in. Was really good about that. And that's kind of where Phantoms came from, is I wanted to do something with the journal. Started as like a kind of fictionalized memoir, but I always found that there's a lot of power in poetry.
For sure.
And it really is like the essence of these stories, And
Is it how simplified you make it and how powerful you can speak a whole story in such a short bar or two?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, man. And I think that by fictionalizing a story like that, with what we went through, I think I would have felt like that we were doing kind of a disservice to the use of deployment, the uniqueness of reserves in a very hostile environment, and in the capability of the reserve component at that time. Sure. I kind of wanted to touch on that, but I was like, I think there's to be said, like with what you said, with the simplification, the boiling down, the parts, for it to be a good poetry book.
Facts. What We'll talk about this. So this Phantoms, this right here, masterpiece. My man Ben Pope, and came out how ago now?
August of 23. Yep.
How's it doing? People liking it? Like, obviously,
Yeah.
I've seen it all over socials. Dude, people are loving it, dude.
Yeah.
Don't be away with me.
No, you know, man, it's one of those things where you put something out there and you never know what to expect, especially in this.
Especially something that means so much to you.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I'm going to be very honest. I wrote this for myself, and it was very much a thing that I wanted to.
Elaborate on that. Why for yourself? Is it like I don't know. I do the podcast for myself. I guess I get a little bit of something out of it, talking to guys that are like-minded. I pull something out of that. Is that something similar for you?
Yeah, it's just the unraveling of the knots that were tied up inside of me, and
I like how you said that.
to share this with other people. And I love that it's been, to me, success is coming from a Marine veteran who runs a behavioral health group. And I gave him a copy of my book, and he tells me that his reading of some of the poems in his groups have brought people out of their shell.
Wow.
It's that to me just like blows my mind, dude. It's more than the fucking reviews, more than the sales and the numbers and all that shit. It's stuff like that wow, that is when I connect with the idea that yeah, it's for me, but it's also for others. And that's why I publish, man. It's when you publish something and you put something out there in the public, like with the podcasts and whatnot, it's you, of course, because you're a part of it. You are, running the show, you're running the ship, you're calling the shots, but it's also for the other people.
Facts.
And for you to build your audience, build your community, and help somebody get out of a slump or fucking even just open up a little bit and
Something
talk
like
about
that does
those
mean
stories.
so much to me, though. Like in kind of a similar situation, someone reached out to me and said he was in like some kind of veteran group, and guys watched something that I did, and they started telling their stories to a certain degree. That I didn't expect hearing something like that, and it just hit me different.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, I can't believe something I did influence that to a certain degree. And then, it just felt really, really positive, really good.
That's great to hear, man.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what really, so you just out of the blue decided to publish it, or did something push you in that direction?
Yeah, I had a couple of I had a couple poetry books launched. My first one was in 2009. My second was in 2019. And I had a long time goal of releasing some kind of creative aspect of the deployment, whether it was a documentary, a memoir, whatever. And two, to have Dead Reckoning Collective be the host of that and to be the publisher of that.
A lot of people like Dead Reckoning Collective, huh? What did that drew you to them?
I was an initial follower mainly because the Verses and Curses tour was what kind of got me going, and that was the tour with Justin Agan, David Rose, and Leo Jenkins.
Okay.
This was like 2017, 2018. They all got together, they jumped on a bus, and they drove around the East Coast, and they just fucking like,
awesome.
just ripping poems at open mics and shit like that. And I saw that documentary, and I was like, this is really cool. And obviously,
super cool.
I follow, I've been following them for a long time now as, an early adopter of their stuff. And I've much vibed with what they were talking about, the idea that you can be a veteran, you can be a warfighter, you can also have that cognitive dissonance of, the military-industrial complex, bad. Killing, civilians and shit like that, bad. But still kind of forced to be involved.
See how
in
we
these
never really
things.
talk about that? It's such a double negative to a certain degree because we're killers. At the end of the day, we are killers.
Yeah.
But we understand humanity to a certain... We are humans at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And we acknowledge that some of the things that we're trained to do and that we're told to do are some wrong and some morally to a certain degree, or
and a collective wrongness, and like in no society is it really okay to fucking just slaughter people.
It's so weird
and bloodlines.
Yes, that's what I mean. We talk about this stuff. It's I got out when I got out of the Marine Corps. I was still kind of like washed with the kill. Towel heads are bad and this and that, and like a friend of mine really sat me down and just like broke down certain things and really what we were doing over there. It had nothing to do with patriotism or like that. Like, sadly, I mean, war is now is ran by the military-industrial complex to a certain degree. Yeah. I mean, to get government funding, and
it's woven into our economy.
It really is.
So, and I realized that Dead Reckoning Collective, that was part of their, their voice. I was like, yeah, I can get behind that.
Who's like the voice of Dead Reckoning Collective?
It's hard. I wouldn't put it on one person. Tyler and Keith are the co-creators, and they both have a very similar vision of exploring that cognitive dissonance, of exploring those juxtapositions to morality, to ethics, to, and these are hard fucking dudes, man. I mean, Tyler was a 173rd in the Korengal Valley. Oh, wow. Like, hard-ass fucking
You wouldn't
dude,
expect
man.
someone like that to have that type of enlightenment.
Intellectual enlightenment, yeah, for sure, man. And I had the great opportunity to meet Tyler this past summer, and amazing dude, very humble dude. Keith and I have always jived over like the Boston hardcore scene, and like he's from a lot of time, going to hardcore metal shows around here. Cool. He's from New Hampshire.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. So, him and I, we just, we're all just pals, and I love chatting with these guys, and the friendship started long before me publishing with them. So
I really feel like, I know I keep swinging this back into politics, but I feel like people like that, or even people like us, need to get involved with politics to a certain degree, because I just keep seeing the people that are making legislation and that are actually in charge of things like different things involving war and things that involve the troops. They are not soldiers. They are not Marines. Mm-hmm. They have nothing they have no knowledge. They've never been to war. But yet we are listening to these individuals. And oh man, I whenever it comes to stuff like that, I feel like it gets to the point where we talk politics, and it's like, that stuff's just so corrupt. I don't want anything to do with it. It's just I don't want to go near that because it's so negative. Everything to do with it is negative. And I don't know. I feel like maybe that's come with pulling away from the media. I feel like, dude, podcasts are huge right now, and it's great that they're huge because people are really big. Because people are looking at the media and they're like, I don't know.
This is getting a little weird.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't really believe it as much. For example, my father is just a die-hard Republican, and someone that follows Fox News or CNN just all the time is on. And he's finally pulling away and watching podcasts, and it's just like it's the that there's that shift going on right now. Something to think about, man.
Oh, absolutely. I have my first in digital media, and
what is that?
It's basically I studied a lot of video production, including audio editing, camera operation, things like that. I'm very much in the technical world, but part of it that's always intrigued me has like been the sociological aspect. And I remember a class pretty vividly. It was culture in the media, and especially in our first world, 21st century, where you can just fucking pump out anything basically, and especially generative AI and stuff like that. It's really become a wild landscape. And so when you look at particular mediums and platforms, and they know their audience well enough to be able to just give them what they want, and it becomes those echo chambers. And
right.
And I encourage everyone to just fucking broaden your horizons. Do your own research. Broaden your horizons. Don't take everything at face value.
Facts.
You are your own researcher.
Critical thinking is huge, man.
Absolutely. It's going to the wayside, unfortunately.
It is. And why is that? Is it just because I don't know, why is that? People are just in tune with the media and they don't want to pull away from it. That's their safety net to a certain degree, or I don't know. It really out to me when Ukraine went off, and just so many people were just waving the flag and talking about things that they had no idea what they were saying. Like there's to every story, guys. Like, and I don't know. It scared me. It scared me to see that the media was that powerful to make such a huge reaction or chain reaction to something.
Yeah. Yep.
And that goes with even right now. I mean, for some reason, it just seems like this. It seems like the DOJ currently right now is Ben West to a certain degree, and I've never been like a huge voter or someone that like always votes for a president, but I don't know. It's that not only is someone not being allowed to be on a ballot, but it's almost I don't even know how to attack that one. And keep in mind, I'm not 100% in tune with absolutely everything that's going on today because I'll put on the news for 5 minutes and I'll have it shut off just because it's just agitated me to a certain degree. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you someone that votes all the time?
Yeah, I am, and man, these last few years have shaken my faith, dude.
How so? Do you like it doesn't matter to
I really do. And that's to hear because, when I joined, it was because I thought the Bill of Rights were important. It's
facts.
because I thought that
you were fighting for something.
right, and these living documents are, entitling citizens to, amazing freedoms that a lot of the world just doesn't have. And so when you realize just how, I'll use this word kind of loosely, but like there's systems. It's systemic, dude.
Yes.
You got the military-industrial complex. You got, all kinds of wild systems that are basically in place to, keep fences and barriers up between classes, especially between races, between creeds, anything, and it's in my eyes, the perfect society would be one driven by science and art.
Agreed.
And the military would be like this thing that, is kind of integrated in society because as we can see here today, like our distancing of, there's no conscripting.
Nope.
We are an all-volunteer military. Yep. You and I signed on the dotted line knowing full well what we were getting into.
Absolutely.
And nobody that was there didn't want to be there, basically.
Facts. Very margin of people,
Very
maybe.
small, right. Or they might not have known what they were getting into or whatever.
Exactly.
But, everyone knew. And unfortunately, that has kind of driven a big divide because, one of the things about conscription is you're going to get a people that don't want to be there. They're going to be agitated. They don't want to do the mission, whatever. But you're also going to get people who are just going to be like, all right, I got 2 years. I better fucking do it. Like, let's go.
You're right.
And they're going to come back to their families and tell them the stories and things like that. And you don't know if your number's going to be up.
Facts.
And if it is, you better hope that you're not going to the meat grinder or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think that we've lost, I feel like, and I don't know this for facts, but I feel like we stretched ourselves thin during GWOT.
I agree.
We stretched ourselves so thin, like less than 1% of the population was out there, less, in an even smaller percent.
When you say we stretch ourselves thin, who are you referring to?
The U.S. military, I think, as a whole.
Big time.
As a whole. And despite the growth that we had post 9/11, by integrating, the Coast Guard into the DOD and things like that, we're starting to realize that there is bigger picture happening, that
They're having problems with recruiting right now. The numbers they're actually low.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it's showing something's changing. Whether that be, you want to put that on the youth of today? I don't know. I feel like that's an easy out. Yes and no.
Every generation's going to say it's the youth of today.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, I think it is an easy out.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Because you've had guys on like Tom Schumann, and you could ask him for sure, like, how good are our guys? And this is a dude.
I tried asking him that. And I feel like he would be the one to, like, if it was just us around, like, having a fire and having a couple beers and talking about it, I feel like he'd given us a different story. But I don't know. He's on a platform where someone's going to hear him.
He is very much in the public eye, and I fucking commend him for balancing the idea of a field-grade officer in an infantry unit.
That's a stressful life, dude, right
in
there.
an infantry
Facts.
unit. And, like, this key figure in, like, the literature world.
Yeah.
And he gets, good on you, Tom. You're doing a great job.
Definitely. For him to just balance that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's. I don't think he gets enough flowers for that because the level of patriotism and just motivation to do his job. I'm surprised that he's still in. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
keep in mind this was someone that he was in Sangin with 3.5 when they became combat ineffective. You know, so many double amps.
Yeah.
These boys were getting it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Thank God we do have an officer that was a part of that life, at least instill to at least we know someone has sense and he's teaching Marines the proper things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
He had something on. He posted something on his Instagram the other day. I don't know exactly what it was. He was giving off, or he was talking about a tradition that 3.5 had, or that side is 3.5 Dark Side.
Dark Horse.
Dark Horse.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly who he was talking about, but he was talking about just a tradition they had, old school Marines have. And I feel like you don't hear about that enough. Just old traditions being still, I mean, maybe you do in the Marines and it's just not on social media and it's out of public purview, so you don't really see it, but I was happy to see it, is what I'm trying to say. It was good to see.
That's one of the great things that really intrigued me about the Marine Corps is I was a history buff as a growing up, and I appreciated how much the Marine Corps appreciates their history,
Facts.
how much they, you know, and is it a cult? Yup. But was it fun? Yup. Yeah. I mean, dude, like,
It means so much more.
it does, dude. It means so much more. And I love chatting with like Army guys who are like, dude, you Marines are like, you love like your history. You love like those little things. Like you remember some random gunnery sergeant from some random battle. And it's like, how many fucking soldiers can remember the greatest?
You don't think of it like
know,
that, actually.
outside
Yeah,
of like
right.
Audi Murphy or
You're
whatever.
right.
You know, how many soldiers can?
Or Patton.
Right? Yeah. How many guys can name their the from 1945 or whatever?
I think that's something that makes us who we are, really. I mean, you can see clearly over the years, the Marines have always been that motherfucker that hits back in the night. You know what I mean? Like the guys you send in when you know it's popping off,
Yeah.
and you want someone tooth and nailing it with them. You know what I
Right.
mean? And to know that we have that background when you're in, it makes you want to perform.
Oh,
You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? Like to hold the tradition, to just hold.
There's a legacy that's just
The legacy,
covering
that's the
you,
word I'm looking for,
You
legacy,
know,
yeah.
and there is, man, and like that goes back to that night on September 4th, man. It's like not only would I feel the shame of being a coward in the face of my platoon commander, my platoon sergeant,
right.
you know, I would be shaming every Marine that had landed on Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal and went through the fucking Hue City and dude, like, nah, well, I can't.
It's a kinetic environment with so much popping off and going on. Still, you're having that thought. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I was saying before. This is the time.
Yeah.
This is it where I make my bones right here.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is look back and be like, yeah, I was a Marine. Mm-hmm. That's what I was
That's
doing.
the moment I think about, man.
Yeah.
It's not the yellow footprints. It's not getting
No.
the EGA.
No.
It's one of the worst.
It's doing that goddamn thing that we thought of when we were going to join.
Yeah.
That was going to be the instance that made us a Marine.
Right.
That 5 minutes, that half hour, that 2 seconds, whatever it was.
And I'd like to think of it more of, because I almost just said, you know, it was one of the worst days of my life.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's such a...
I want to think of it more as a collective of experiences, you know, and that's one of the things I'd explore a lot in Phantoms is that cognitive dissonance is the worst day of my life is also the day that I think of when I tell people I was a Marine.
What? That's why we're all crazy.
That's
why...
yeah, dude, for sure. And it's like, but that is the moment that, you know, just seared into, everyone has that moment. And it was terrible. But that is the thing that, you know, we went into knowing. You know, this gets back to our voluntary thing. Like, when we were going in, man, like, the wars were hot, dude. Yeah, and we knew they were going somewhere. And you know, I really commend Marines and soldiers that are still in, and we are looming, you know, into some kind of possible international conflict.
Think about
you know,
it, though. How tough must it have been to have been in the Marines or in like just like a victor position after the GWOT ended? You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard to be in a peacetime corps after all your staff NCOs and all of us got out after fucking banging it out over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I talked to a bunch of like a couple young guys that are in right now, and they all say that they look at us like
they looked up to us. That's why they
Yep.
joined. They wanted to be like us. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they haven't got a taste for it yet. And that's as he's saying right now, it's a double-edged sword, man. That's something we fucking want, we pray for, and that's our meaningful moment, if you will. That's you know what I mean? But it's also something that's gonna fucking terrify your ass.
Yeah. Yeah,
know?
man. And I have who are still in and saw, action in Iraq and Afghanistan, and I try to give them, as much the resources that I have and to let them know that, like, hey, I'm in a life now, but I want to support you as best I can. And if that means sending you, some cool shit, if that means sending you a book that you can share with your homies when you got some downtime, I will do the shit out of that. I will send you whatever you want.
Something else I feel like we don't talk about enough, because honestly, the war that we're fighting right now is suicide to a certain degree, man, or just PTSD and suicide, because these things that we're talking about that we love, that are our moments, unfortunately, are killing some guys, and what is that really? I mean, it's throughout the services, Army, Guard, Navy. I mean, we all have suicide rates, but I don't know, man. It seems like it's gotten progressively worse, and I feel like, I keep saying it in every podcast. All we can do is talk about it and spread awareness. But thank God we do have the organizations like Hunter 7 and private organizations that are being progressive and trying to do something, because it I don't know. I mean, I have my qualms with the VA, but they have helped me at the same time. And I'm sure it's not easy getting in a room with fucking psychos like us and hearing what the fuck we have to say and being like, oh, okay, this is what you do to fix that.
Right. Yeah.
But it's also scary going in there when you tell them some real shit you're going through and they look at you like, oh, you know what I mean? Like you feel like you're a gerbil to some degree. Like they're gonna just throw shit at you to see if it fucking gets the reaction they want out of you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, as Marines, a lot of us, we embrace our misfit side, because I don't think anybody who's wired normally is attracted to the Marine Corps.
That's true.
So, I have a little theory, and I've had some pushback on it, but, I have a little theory going that, a lot of us grew up in emotionally abusive, physically abusive,
Fucked up situations.
and we don't realize it maybe at the time until, we get a little more life experience and a little...
There's a reason you're joining the Marine Corps at war.
Yeah, right.
Come on.
You're just a glutton for punishment. So...
Something has to be going on somewhat poorly.
Right.
I mean, you would think. I mean, some people, maybe they're just fucking nuts. But not everyone just decides to pick up and go into a war in the Middle East that, 6 times out of 10, you're coming back with either shrapnel in your ass, missing limbs, or you're just not coming back.
Right.
So,
yeah. It was man, but there's something to be said about and to jump back on the suicide epidemic, because I think there's something to be said about the societal disconnection, and this is just one small part of it. It's very much a multifaceted
I'm sure it is.
thing,
I'm sure it has something to do with how fucked up the times are today. I mean, that bleeds into... Is that what you mean?
No, I mean more like the social disconnection between our troops and our civilian side.
Gotcha.
In that big divide, because basically, unless like you live on like a military base or in a military
How are you gonna know
town,
anything? Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't. It's so far removed. It's so far removed.
Disconnect.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I keep harping on it. I mean, that's where this can help. You watch something like this, and you can kind of get in our brain and see how we operate. Or if I didn't know anything about this shit, this is what I would watch. But you're right. There is, man. That was my biggest problem. So when I first got out of the Marines, I was not doing well. And I got pushed into, like, I've done the VA in 4th gear. Everything they could do, I've done. And this was 2012, 2013. It was so up to me that they were so in over their heads and they did not know what to do.
Yeah.
First off, they didn't understand it. And if you don't understand something, you're gonna fail in everything you do involving it.
Right.
You got to get to know something, pick its brain, figure out what's driving it, figure out where these fucking things are coming from, these stressors, and try to work with it somehow. But you can't just, I don't know. It really turned me off how I was treated at that process. So I can understand people's qualms with it. But then I went the private route, and I don't know if you know, up here we have these veteran groups or private funded veteran facilities.
The vet centers,
Yeah,
I'm talking
vet
about?
centers,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love the vet
Me too,
centers,
me too.
man.
I think they're doing a
fucking
great job.
Yeah. Yep. No, they've had a great everybody that I know that's gone there has had nothing but things to say, and it's just a great side channel, especially for
I think it's a step in the right direction.
so maybe one day they can be integrated into
Yeah, I mean,
VA. But I mean, is that really even necessary? I don't know.
I feel like they actually kind of pride themselves on not being part of the VA.
Yeah,
You know
they're
what
not
I mean?
like
because
in
so many
the-
people come to them pissed off at the VA. You know what
Right,
I mean?
exactly. I'm sure that's the majority of the people that walk through those doors are like, I've been trying to get a VA appointment for months, or I don't
Facts.
connect with my therapist, or whatever.
Definitely.
So, yeah, no, vet centers, awesome. Shout out to them for sure.
Yeah, definitely shout out the vet center. Okay, so where are you at today? What's going on today? Other than Phantom kicking ass.
Yeah, man. Phantoms is doing good. I have my sights set on the Robert Gannon Award, which is the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation. They give out annual awards.
Okay.
And that is a nice recognition down at the Marine Corps Museum. And that is currently in my sights. The Robert Gannon Award is given for poetry.
Poetry.
So they give out a bunch of different literary and journalism and photography,
Oh, cool.
all kinds of things that revolve around, keeping the legacy and adding to the canon of the Marine Corps.
Gotcha.
So I had the fellow who got blown out of the turret. I had him submit a package for me for Phantoms. So we're hoping, unless some other Marine out there released a poetry book and nominated themselves for it.
Motherfuckers, you better not. Give them one.
Now, Justin Egan's a prior winner. David Rose is a prior winner. So Mason Rodrigue was
all
a
the
prior
boys.
winner.
All the boys.
All the boys. So if I can stick my name up on that roster, I'll be very happy.
We'll definitely we'll stay in tune with that one because I'd love to come down and see you get that. That'd be huge.
Hell yeah.
Okay, so anything? I mean, something I want to ask you. I
Yeah.
mean, we kind of talked to the guys of today. If any advice, Marines of today, what would you give them? Because we know what they're going through, man. I mean, we got China sites, fucking Ukraine possibly in the sites. Maybe we're still in Syria. Who knows? Who knows where? There's multiple engagements going on, so there's a bunch of things that could happen.
Yeah.
They're also technically still in a peacetime corps, so you know how that is. What would you these guys, man?
All right, sit, kneel, bend, stand. No, I mean, hey, look, if you join the Marines right now and you're an infantry guy, fucking kudos to you because you're keeping that legacy of all infantry Marines. And we're sorry that we can't be there with you at this time, but thanks for tuning in. If you better just know your job.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that.
That's it. That's really
As you
that's
said,
what it
the
comes
things
down
you
to
can
me.
control. Fucking train.
Know your job.
Know your job. Know the guys around you's job.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And not to be corny or anything like that. This is just being prepared. Something I wish I did in the Marines before I went to the Middle East. Instead of fucking partying and boozing my fucking nuts off, going out, I wish I fucking learned about my enemy, man. I wish I read more. I wish I learned about where I was going, the climate. I wish I perfected my gear a little bit more. I wish I knew my weapon systems, all of the above. It's only going to help in the long run. So yeah, honestly.
And statistically speaking, you are going to be in for such a short fucking time.
Facts.
And you got to make the most of it.
Might as well
And-
kill it while you can.
Exactly. You will never be the animal that you are today.
Facts.
God damn it.
Hey, look at it, dude. All we have are these stories. All you're going to have are these stories. Take pictures.
Take tons of
videos.
pictures,
Yeah,
yep.
fuck them if they want to bitch about it. Just take them. Yeah, all you're going to have are these stories. Fucking make the best out of it. Kill it. And fucking be a goddamn Marine at the end of the day. You know? These little things that I hear that people are whining about, they're little things. Just the whole pride of us Marines is we don't bitch. We just get the fucking job done and we do it better than this guy and that guy. So try to hold that, standard going forward, guys, because that's all we have as Marines.
That's it.
But there you have it, guys. Episode 91 in the books. Phantoms in the shelves. Please go pick it up and look out for that Gannon Award for my guy over here, Benjamin Fortier.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, you can get this. Recommend everybody go to the Dead Reckoning Collective site. That's, where if you want to vote with your money, that's definitely the way to do it, because it's a small business.
Veteran-owned, veteran-operated. Fucking support the good guys, huh?
Yep, and leave a review if you get through it. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Love
fucking
you all.
leave them some reviews, man. Blow their shit up,
It's
please.
fucking huge.
Please. If you even took time to watch this fucking video, get on this motherfucker. Leave him a review. That's all we got is our own to support each other. So while we're up there, fucking support my guy. Episode 91 in the books. Hard.